We were very isolated. We were in the middle of nowhere. The number of scientists was, initially when I was first there, was probably smaller than 200, but divided into many separate groups pursuing different work in different directions entirely. And many of the problems were ridiculously difficult, in fact impossible to solve. The work was carried out, all of the technical work, within what was called the technical area, which had a separate fence around it, and one needed special identification to get into it. Then there was the town surrounding that, where the town had maybe altogether 1,000 people who were mostly young families. The people, as I've mentioned, who were so young on the project had been married for a few years. They were producing babies much more productively than anything else that was happening at the laboratory. The Army was producing more and more babies there. And there was a military police area connected to the laboratory, and this was all within a large fence. But the fences were almost beside the point there because the country was crossed by enormous canyons which were impassable. You could only get up there by one road. So there was this sense of isolation. On the other hand, the climate was beautiful. The hiking, to walk out in the country on the weekends was marvelous. And it was an extraordinary place for young people. Now, how did one get food? Well, the Army has a supply system. It produced a grocery store there, and one saw movies. In the gymnasium, the large wooden gymnasium they constructed, they would show movies 3 nights a week, and the admission cost 10 cents. All salaries were low in those pre-inflationary times. I must say my salary, initially the first year amounted to $25 a week. And we had to pay for food. I think I paid as much as $14 a week for food. It was excellent. As civilians, I wasn't in the Army. As civilians, we had to pay rent to some sort of agency. I don't know what it was, $20 a month, maybe. Well, it was a military post. Would not buy any beer other than 3.2 beer. It was at a low percentage of alcohol. That didn't mean that the military police never got drunk. The parties did not have any significant quantity of alcohol if they involved many people, but they usually involved lunch bowl. But it was a place in which everything was provided for you, everything was done for you. You had nothing to do but get up in the morning, go in, do your work in the technical area, and come back. And what you did then, if you had a family, I suppose was prescribed for you, but if we didn't have families, the bachelors who lived in the dorms, we most likely went to the movies or listened to a poor signal on the radio coming all the way from Albany. There wasn't much on, and we did a great deal of reading. I have to say, I probably never did that much reading. There was a theory division directed by Hans Bader. I was in a group run by Robert Serber, his name was, and their problem was neutron diffusion, how you find the critical mass of the uranium-235 and plutonium. What are the critical masses, and how much does the critical mass depend upon the surrounding matter, which we call the tamper? That if you put scattering material around this sphere of fissionable material, it decreased the critical mass. And alternatively, if you had a larger mass than critical, it had a certain exponential multiplication rate. And I calculated many of those. It was not a very original position to be in. These were well-defined mathematical problems, but I could deal with them by reading the papers. The atmosphere was good. We were informed on all of the problems. The laboratory tried to keep information from going out, and there were many efforts at that. But the exchange of ideas within the laboratory was extraordinary. And it's interesting because when General Groves was put in charge of the project, and when it began, his first thought was that nobody should know anything about what anyone else was doing. And it was Oppenheimer and the people around him, the scientists, the chief scientists, who had a terrible time persuading him that that way of proceeding would never work, that one really depended on having the ideas contributed by everyone who understood the problems.
I know that the bombs that we make in Los Alamos cannot be exploded by such countermeasures.
Oppenheimer had an excellent understanding of science. He had never written very much. And I would have to tell you, the papers he had wrote, you cannot understand. But his understanding was excellent, and his ability to verbalize his understanding was extraordinary. Everyone agreed on that. There were not any other people